Are we ready to go, Dariana?
Yes, we are, Crawford. Would you want me to start with
Okay,
roll?
just a second. First of all, good afternoon, and we appreciate those that have made this ungodly time. But by George, we did it because we have some important things that we have to accomplish. And Doug, we apologize to you for keeping you on hold for so long, but we had to ensure we had quorum.
No problem.
Okay, we are the Community Advisory Board for Contra Costa County, and we are known as CAB. Gariano, would you kindly call the roll?
Absolutely. Crawford Carpenter,
Here.
Nicole Green,
Here.
Brenda Lee,
Here.
Raina Moore, Scott Parsons,
Here.
Latanya Thompson,
Here.
Reverend Julius Van Hook,
I made it here.
we have
Hey,
7
thank
members
God.
present.
Really?
Quorum is established.
And thank you, Gariana. Let's set the table here. There are just a few of us here that may be new. I notice we have one person on Zoom. We have 4 visitors in the room. Let's set the table with housekeeping items. First of all, persons who wish to address the Community Advisory Board during public comment on matters within the jurisdiction of CAB that are not on the agenda, or who wish to comment with respect to an item on the agenda, may comment in person, via Zoom or via call-in. Those participating in person should make a comment, please, when called upon. For those participating via Zoom, you should indicate that they wish to speak by using the raise your hand feature on the Zoom app. Those calling in should indicate they wish to speak by pushing *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 to mute, and *6 again to unmute. Now, since today we have 2 presentations and we have an extensive agenda and we may have some time constraints, I would respectfully ask Tom, Casey, that you hold your presentations to somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 minutes max. And that's to ensure that we can then follow up with questions if need be, and then complete the rest of the agenda. And one other item, Tom, you were scheduled to go ahead of Casey. We're going to kind of move some things around. Casey has to leave. We're going to put you in right after we complete the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. So that, don't think we're totally out of sync here. We're not, but we want to make sure that we can address the needs of those who really went out of their way to come to this meeting. Let's move on now. Our purpose is to advise Community Corrections Partnership, which is CCP, on providing information pertaining to the county's efforts in criminal justice reinvestment. Some of the ways that we wish to accomplish this are providing input on community needs, reviewing data on realignment outcomes, and offering recommendations for ongoing realignment planning. We're grateful to those members who are able to make it today. Thank you. And we really appreciate this particular commitment. Now it's time to get to work. Let's now move to introductions. Let's do first, we've already covered on the roll call the committee members. Let's move to staff that may be in the room. Let's start with you, please, Patrice.
Hi, everyone. Patrice Guillory here from the Office of Reentry and Justice.
Thank you. Jill, would you kindly?
Jill Ray with the Office of Supervisor Kenneth Anderson.
Thank you. And this lady, are you staff? I'm not.
Reverend Alexandria, I'm also an associate chaplain at the juvenile.
Okay, we'll call you a tweener. Fine. Okay. Casey, let's go with Casey, please.
Casey Rain, Rain Community Development.
Thank you. And Tom Kind.
Tom Aswad with Support for Recovery.
Thank you. Now let's move to members on Zoom. Doug, would you care to introduce yourself, please?
I'm Doug Leach with the Multi-Faith Action Coalition, and I am not a member.
Okay, Doug. All right, now let's move. Are there any announcements before we move to public comment? Any general announcements? Seeing none in the room, seeing none on Zoom. Let's now move to public comment. Is there any public comment on any item under the jurisdiction of the community advisor, of the Community Advisory Board and not on the agenda? Oh, yes.
Are we gonna read the one from Rachel Rosekind that we got from Patrice?
Okay, would you care to read that?
Well, sure.
Thanks.
We had a submission from Rachel Rosekind to be read at the full cap. I would not read the whole thing, take like little bits and pieces of it. I'll start off with our first paragraph. Octavia E. Butler wrote, "All good things must begin. For those returning to begin is to begin again. But this time the stakes, hopes, obstacles, and roadblocks are even greater. The psychic and emotion toll of incarceration is often stifling and stifling. And there are people everywhere, often in position of power or control, who have made up their mind about you before you even said a word. Trauma and stigma are everyday reality. So are strength and stamina, sorry. Some key things that she pointed out was in reference to post-release services as well as guaranteed income. And she gave some examples. Post-release is a stressful, confusing, and challenging period. Something as basic yet profound as unrestricted regular cash payments, otherwise known as guaranteed income, can transform the entire experience. This degree of economic security doesn't make all the other barriers and problems go away, but it does alleviate the principal source of anxiety, disorientation, and depression. Jesus. It's like oxygen, which is why it's no surprise that guaranteed income participants report being able to breathe as a major outcome. Guaranteed income can be a critical support with a barter system designed to actually increase a formerly incarcerated person's chance of successful community and integration and individual accomplishments. I do want to point out that she gave, and we'll post this later for the, okay. She posted some examples in reference to guaranteed income, which was launched in Stockton at a seed pilot, which began in 2019 and concluded 2021. She also notated and gave us some links for some data-driven reporting, over 30 pilots nationwide. Another thing that she pointed out was she believed that a guaranteed income pilot could be an excellent use of the AB 109 access funds targeted toward post-release services. She gave an example of, gave us an example, that 1.8 million allocation from the 15 million access funds could extend 1,000 a month direct cash payment to at least 100 individuals for 18 months. That's usually the typical length of a pilot. Even a smaller pilot at 50 participants could be tremendous good and still plenty in the pot of other critical needs and programs. And there's a lot more, but it'll be posted afterward for individuals to read.
And the gist of that article was, we release people, say, thank God, they're out in the public venue, but no housing, no income, no nothing.
Right.
And then we wonder why we have recidivism. I thought it was an excellent letter that she sent us, so we should all really take note of that.
And just remember our recommendations and our AB 109 access funds recommendations is focused on that, the housing, behavioral health, employment, and pre and post release.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right. Can we now move to item number 3, Cariana, which is the approval of the actions from our meeting on Thursday, August the 10th. And I'm assuming now, since we've had one dry run of this meeting and this is the second, that everyone has, that every,
Motion.
yeah.
And I second.
Okay, do we have a motion?
All in favor?
Okay, all right, a motion has been made. Is there any discussion?
His face is bright.
I'm enjoying the show.
There he
Is there any discussion? All right. No, would you kindly,
There's a-
oh, yes. Yes,
Um,
please. Oh.
Doug has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to say that I attended the Racial Justice Oversight Body meeting on Zoom last Thursday, and there was trouble with the audio. Those of us who were on Zoom were having trouble understanding what was being said. And I believe it was in this same room that you're meeting in today. And I want to say it is so much better today. I can hear very clearly everything that everyone is saying. So I don't know if any adjustments have been made to the room, but it worked. So on the topic at hand, I just commend CAB for the what you have put together in these recommendations that you're about to vote on, and I think they're very worthy recommendations, and worthy of being guides to how to use the excess reserve funds that have been recommended for use for public programs. So thank you for doing that. And Rachel Rosekind was kind enough to share that letter with me ahead of time. And I just want to put in my endorsement of that idea that guaranteed income would be an excellent way to use some of those reserve funds for a pilot on guaranteed income for people returning from incarceration. Oh, and by the way, I think you may be aware that Contra Costa County does have a guaranteed income working group, and that Rachel Rosekind is a member of that working group. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Unless there are no other discussion points, let's call the roll on the minutes, please. Ariana?
All right, Crawford,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Brenda,
Aye.
Raina,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Latanya,
Aye.
Reverend Julius Van Hook.
Aye.
We have 7 yeses, motion carries.
Just an FYI, since all members are present, we're going to roll call vote. General compromise.
Oh, thank you. Good.
And just to confirm, we did get Nicole used motion.
Yep.
And then,
Scott.
seconded by Scott.
Okay, the motion carries. Now we said we're going to do a little switching here now. We're going to have Casey give her presentation. And then afterwards, we'll return to the item number 4. So let's start, Casey, if you could give us your presentation, and thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Doug, I'm looking to your picture to see if you can hear me properly or if I need to speak up. So just give me a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. My name is Casey Rain. I'm with Rain Community Development, and I have been tasked by the Office of Reentry and Justice to help them develop a restorative justice initiative for Contra Costa County. I'm going to take a minute and talk to you a little bit about what that means today. And then I look forward to answering any questions that you might have about the work that we are doing and what it might mean for our community. So what is restorative justice? I just want to start out by saying restorative justice is both an approach to how justice might be delivered, as well as a series of evidence-based and emerging evidence-based practices that can be done, may be done with fidelity and be modeled on what other people and other communities are doing. But sometimes when we talk about restorative justice, we kind of are talking about it as a big umbrella thing. And sometimes we're talking about a specific kind of a program. For this initiative, I want to be very clear. What we have heard from our community is that we want restorative justice approaches in our community, but how we actually deliver that. What are our programs? What are the principles? What are the practices that we spread into our community and into the organizations that serve our community? What does that actually mean for Contra Costa County? Well, that's part of what we're going to be doing. That is the planning process. That is what we are figuring out. I am not going to be answering that. My job is to go out into the community, talk to community members, and then synthesize those recommendations. That is what the Restorative Justice Initiative project is. Next slide. Our deliverable is really to first conduct a needs assessment to figure out what we need and what we want and what is feasible to implement. And then once that happens, to work on the implementation to further embed and support the adoption of whatever principles, practices, or programming that we are doing throughout the county. The goal at the end of this 2-year project is that the philosophies and practices associated with restorative justice are embraced and understood and adopted throughout Contra Costa County, within different organizations, within different county agencies. This is in fact a 2-year project, and the needs assessment will be occurring over the first 6 months. Next slide. So my name again is Casey Rain. This is the team that I have working with me. I'm working with another team called Bright Research Group. We are a team of management consultants and restorative justice facilitators and practitioners who are coming together to listen to this community. And we are just so excited to be here. I really wanted to say about our restorative justice facilitators. It is important for us that we listen in the way that we want to model working with people. And I really am appreciative of the facilitation team that is coming in and supporting us. This is not a one-man show. This is a group effort. And we are going to do our best to listen and listen deeply to the community and look forward to community members sending us their comments and feedbacks, working through groups like this CAB to get information out there and funnel it back to us. You, the CAB, are the eyes and ears of our community. You have your fingers on the pulse. It is my hope, it is our hope as a team that in addition to the work that we do, we can also borrow your wisdom, your experience, your eyes, your ears, your senses, and have all of that come back to us. People will talk to you, they know you. So that is part of why I am here today to present the CAB, is to say we can't do this without you. So thank you. Let me tell you a little bit more about the project. And I want to be really clear that what we are doing now is reviewing the methodology of the first 6 months so that you know how we will do the work. Again, I can't tell you what's going to come out of it. I can't say, oh, it'll be this kind of thing. We'll say, well, what's the restorative justice program? I don't know. I don't know. We will learn together. And how we will do that is through a community engagement process. It has already started. This isn't the first meeting I've presented to. We're starting to get information. The first big community workshop is actually tomorrow. We have 40 47 or 48 confirmed representatives coming. Some of you are coming. Thank you. This is a workshop primarily for people who have experience working in our community and have touched our community and may know a little bit of something about restorative justice. We're going to ask you to help us build the vision and framework of what restorative justice is. Then once we have that established, right, then we're going to go out and we're going to go do key informant interviews in different neighborhoods with different kinds of people who've had different experiences. Some will be adults or juveniles who have touched the justice system. Some might be teachers, some might be law enforcement professionals, some might be victims who have been hurt. We're going to try to listen to different kinds of statements. We're going to be doing focus groups. We're going to be doing community survey. And we're hoping to get a bunch of information back about what people want and need. In the community survey, we're going to be testing sentiments about restorative justice. That again is going to go out to the 500 people through this Office of Reentry and Justice mailing list, but we are additionally hoping to lean on our community partners who may also have their own mailing list so that this can be a survey that is distributed widely in our communities. This is how we will gather information about what we want and what is feasible. Then based on that, and then combined with our analysis of best practices, looking at the data on needs and opportunities, from that, we will put that together for a recommendation on programs and practices that we can implement in about a year with less than $2 million that are feasible and impactful. So what does that mean in terms of the long run and how will this all play out? Next slide. Just in terms of the timeline, this is a 2-year project. We are doing this needs assessment that I just reviewed with you. We started in late July, early August, done a lot of background conversations and looking at data, wrapping up in December with the needs assessment. We're going to be then taking some concepts on the road around what we think the project design should be. And we'll be working on developing a scope of work potentially, protocol practice agreements, how it will be done. And then in the ideal world, we'll be starting up within about a year or less so that we have a full year of program activities that we can look at, monitor, and report on whether or not we are making the impact that we all desire. This is really about outcomes and impact. It is not enough to do things. They have to do things that make a difference for other people whose lives will be touched and changed through this work. Next slide. So wrapping up, what is our basis for doing this? I really want to just say thank you to this group. Thank you to the Measure X committee. Thank you to the community. We are here because restorative justice has been talked about as a strategy and a solution in 3 successive planning processes undertaken by Contra Costa County. It came up as a recommendation in the Racial Justice Task Force back in 2018. It came up through the Measure X committee that this is what we should be doing. And it's the Measure X funds that are being used to do this planning process and this implementation launch. And then of course, with this CAB. And I just want to acknowledge that this CAB, and one of the things that you are going to be looking at today is your second recommendation to expand the use of alternatives to incarceration, including diversion and restorative justice programs, and ensure equitable access to these programs. To the extent that this is the recommendation of the CAB, I will be looking to the CAB for what that recommendation is and incorporating this recommendation by this body, as well as other recommendations by any other bodies duly appointed by Contra Costa County as guidance in what we need to do. And what will our measure of success be? Again, we're looking for outcomes. So to the extent that you guys can talk about what you want to achieve through this, not just what would be a good idea, but what's specific. What's measurable? What change would we see by doing this work? That would be great to hear. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this presentation today. I hope I've explained the work that we are doing and why we feel it's important, and also how we hope to engage you, BizCab, and our community in the future. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you. Just, oh, wait a minute. Any questions? Doug? I guess there are no questions. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, let's move then, Ariana, to item number 4 on the agenda. This will be item number 4, which are. Here we go. Thank you. Before we get started on this here, I just wanted to comment on the effort that this took to revise the doggone guidelines. You have no idea. This started in November of 2022, and we should really be thankful for County Council, ORJ, and for the members of CAB who were kind enough to give us input. Patrice, would you care to maybe comment on some of the key items here? And I had one other thought in reviewing this. Might we want to consider, when we have that situation on paternity leave, if somebody has paternity leave at work, is that something that maybe down the line the county may want to take a look at?
Yeah, I'm not, we could sort that.
Yeah, sort that out, but
Okay. The reason why I'm in this little corner here is because I need to charge my computer. I'll move over and just be sure that I can hear as well. Hi, everybody. As Crawford mentioned, there's been quite a bit of work done to update the operating guidelines. Want to incorporate some of the changes that you all have been making calls for some time. And then also County Council did its own review and did some cleanup language, some changes there. The reason why you are only getting a copy of a clean version, because the red line version was just all over the place. So, but I can make that available to everybody. As I said, that document definitely went through quite a few changes as Crawford mentioned since November. So, but what you see here before you is basically a summary of the changes that were revisions that have been proposed and by County Council, as well as in response to CAB's recommended changes. So the first thing I want to point out here is that County Council acknowledged and is actually recommending that there be some correction made here, that the CCP's bylaws do not adequately or accurately set forth CAB's membership structure. So in the big scheme of things, CCP is essentially an advisory body to the Board of Supervisors. CAB then advises an advisory body, right, as a subcommittee, and then as a subcommittee, CAB also has its own subcommittee, right? So all of varying levels had not necessarily been established in CCP's bylaws. Nonetheless, CCP has recognized CAB structure. It's just not formalized in CCP's bylaws. So that's what that highlight is about. It does not necessarily prohibit any of the changes that CAB has made in its guidelines prohibitive, but there is a process in which we need to get the revised changes approved by CCP so that they can go into effect. The next piece was around adequately defining quorum. So what's set here is that quorum is a majority of the total number of authorized seats on the body, not the number of, occupied seats. So they wanted to be sure that that was clarified. And a lot of these changes too is in effort to make sure that the guidelines are in alignment with Brown Act, with the county's own set of policies around advisory bodies and the like. Yes, ma'am. In alignment with all the other policies that are in place to govern how advisory bodies are to operate within the county and also stated by state regulations.
What does it mean quorum is a majority of total number of officers?
Oh, that's what you're asking. for.
Yeah, and compared to.
That means that if the board has, 15 members, then quorum means the majority of
Yeah.
that membership.
Okay.
So even if that means you have some vacancies there, still would require that you have a majority.
Yeah. May I just, in our case, we have a 12-member voting board.
Yes,
We better have 7 or we can't conduct business. Even though we do have some alternate members, they're not voting members, it's the voting members. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's for us.
and, let's see, and guidelines must set forth the membership structure of the CAB subcommittee. So what that essentially means in the existing guidelines, we do not have a threshold for the number of members that sit on subcommittees. So that's a recommended change here. I believe is either 3 or 4 will make up a subcommittee. In response to your proposed revisions, the county council is recommending that instead of using the term pro tem, that the term alternate be continuously used, as we are referring to any member as a non-voting member, any member that will serve in place of a absent member in order to maintain quorum and that meeting continue. You may recall there was a conversation that CAB had about whether or not any member of CAB that could be present while another CAB member was absent could then serve in that place and then have quorum established. We have seen from other advisory bodies, most notably the Mental Health Commission, they utilize the pro tem language that any of its executive members can serve as a pro tem member to then help ensure that quorum is established for subcommittees or what have you. So in this case, they are in agreement with that. However, that the term should be alternate and not pro tem. Okay, people there. The other response to your change regarding terms for CAB members, if you recall, your current guidelines stipulate that members are to serve in a 3-year term within a 5-year period. So you serve up to 3 years, and then 2 years after that, you're not essentially allowed, so to speak, to renew your membership. You have a 2-year sort of break, and then you can apply again to renew. Where this runs into challenge for CAB is that as members typically term off, that means you have a significant exodus, and as we have seen in terms of recruiting new members, you lose a lot of that history over time, and then also it becomes a challenge just to get those seats filled. So in doing so, in removing this sort of 2-year break, this allows for any member that reaches their 3rd year term can then be eligible to apply for another executive term. Hopefully I caught those. Okay. And then the other piece here, recommended process for amending CAB's operating guidelines. Again, this is essentially stating for you all's awareness that any changes made to your guidelines after you all have approved them must go up to CCP for CCP to also approve them, and it goes into effect. And language referring to that should also be included in your operating guidelines. Yes, ma'am.
So what's the process to read?
It would essentially be, given that we hadn't had this process here for CAB, we would model what we do with other with other advisory bodies, which is essentially open up an application period. You guys, your application period is on a rolling basis. So at any point, any member that will be terming out can submit an application. We bring that forward as we would normally do to OCEC. And then for it to the full CAB, you all can then approve to have that person continue on for another term.
Sure. Could you, accept an application that's within 3 years?
That's within 3 years.
In other words,
They didn't complete their term and stepped on.
no, so they've served a year rather than have to go through the entire application. I think that you just said, could they just voice and say, or just continue before the application comes to the user and reuse it?
We could. That would definitely make things more streamlined. Yeah. Now, unless there's any updated information we'll need to know, we may just for performing to have that on file, we may have you just update your application, but otherwise, yeah, we can still utilize the prior application.
Confusion for us, for advisory bodies, if it's like a 2-year appointment, we'll just give them exchange, which is
Sure.
the previous.
And if you can scroll up just a little bit more, Gary. And then the last note here is just essentially county council did some cleanup language, to essentially make a lot of it a little bit more clear. Again, I think this body is in a unique kind of position. So some of the guidelines may have, provided language that wasn't, as clear as intended. So they just did some minor revisions in that regard, without changing the full intent of what was actually stated. And that's it. So the actual clean version of the updated guidelines are before you, with comments from county council. Hopefully you're able to see that if you're not able to see it in the printed document, I know it's on our online. But those comments are captured in the summary. And this is an action item before you, so you all are able to have some discussion about what is here. You're welcome to take a moment to review and either vote to approve the record for the revision, or if you want more time with this, you can schedule that action at another time.
Is there a motion to approve?
Also move that we approve the revised version.
Thank you. Can we have a second?
A second.
Okay, good. All right, now, here's the tough discussion.
Yeah.
All right, any discussion? Comments?
So what is the time frame that you know for the submission?
So it won't go into effect until CCP approves it. The next CCP meeting is this Friday, so, and the agenda just went out, so it won't make it to that thing. But we can have it ready to go for November. Well, I'll have to ask, but it's a huge budget, like the budget workshop, but if they can maybe make room in that agenda to approve the guidelines, it's certain. It's for that.
Any other discussion? None being, let's call the roll, but let's stop. Now, Jill, how do we do this? Okay, we want to, yeah,
You just, say everyone in favor, and then anybody opposed.
oh, that way,
anybody
okay,
abstained.
all right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. That should make it easier on you, Garyana. And thank you, Jill. Garyana, would you be kind enough to move us to item number 5 on the agenda? A review of prior year's CAB recommendations, highlighting items 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
And Nicole, the show is yours.
Yeah, but for the sake of time, I will kind of give a brief overview of why we're doing this today. So I will give you an update that hopefully on our next meeting, we hope to present you all with the updated recommendations. So Justin and I focused on the main four, which is the housing employment. We added post pre-release as well as, and then we updated behavioral health. What we wanted to do is review recommendation 2, 3, and 4 for all your feedback, because we've done some work through already within CAP to kind of figure out, do we want to point out things that we have accomplished, maybe change the wording a tad bit, or leave it as is. So we can start with number 2. I won't read it word for word as I believe. I lost myself.
Gariana, would you be kind enough to scroll to recommendation number 2, please?
So number 2, I really wanted to get the feedback, well, from all of you as well, but also programs and services. It's around expanded use. Well, I'll let you guys read it. It's right in front of me. I think she put it up here as well.
What, and I see 3.
Number 2 is on page
Is it
19?
19,
Yeah, 19.
okay.
If you scroll just down a little bit more, we need recommendation number 2, if you would, please.
Is this not recommendation number 2?
It is.
There it is now.
So we can take a second and just read it and have a little quick discussion and see if there's any feedback for changes or.
Question. We may have already had this discussion, but was there a reason why why we didn't mention the youth and transition age youth populations as well for restorative justice program?
It could, honestly, I'm not sure. This could have been at that particular time that maybe wasn't a focus, but I think that's the reason why we're here now to add those type of things in there.
Wonderful.
See, perfect point.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I can see where take can certainly be called out, but, because AB 109
Right,
priority language
right.
predominantly focuses on adults, or only focuses on adults, that's why youth is not necessarily specifically called out, but certainly takes a population right in line.
So we can add that in there.
Yes, if you wanted to call out having, specific programming for young adults.
Mariana, you got that? What else? Are you gonna say something, Scott?
So, well, I'm really glad to see the highlighted, we recommend the intention of using victim-centered restorative justice practice approach when appropriate. And in a lot of cases, it would be appropriate, I would think, is particularly in diversion, right?
Right.
And I'm just very happy to see that. So that's a
Okay.
comment to support.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? You all in agreement with adding that part in there about tag?
Well, maybe we should comment
Comment?
our meeting with
Yes.
Assistant Sheriff Simpkins. He made a big point of talking about victims. We're so concerned about the individual who committed an offense, but nobody talks about the mother, the father, the wife, or the child. And he made a big point of that, so that really adds on.
Right.
If you'll recall the
Yeah.
time that he did make a
He
big
put,
point of that.
he did put emphasis on that, and he actually talks a lot about it when he said how the police are impacted. Even after the trial and being able to hear the details and working with the families over a period of time. And the empathy that they have towards the victim and their families. Is seeing similar cases. So it was a lot of emphasis put on that. And it actually made us just look at it differently. You know, as a family member, if something,
Good.
if our family member did something, we would like see the best in them.
Right.
And so one of the comments I made during that time was, now I get it, where one family member is accepting that their loved one will be gone for 7 years. The other family member is at a funeral home making final arrangements.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Big difference. The next one is 3. So this one is around ensuring our reentry programs and services are adaptable to racial equity and trauma informed and are personally competent and responsive to community concern. I definitely want to highlight the work that Ozzy did. If we can, I'm always asking, can I do?
Do anything you want.
I know you keep telling me that. I haven't got used to that yet. But I'll give you all a second to read it.
Number 3 or the? all of
Number
it?
3, number 3.
Okay.
Like for me, that paragraph, we encourage the CCP to have public discussion on how this can be done in conjunction with the work of racial justice oversight body and the creation of the Office of Racial Equity and so on. Me and Justin was thinking that we could still encourage for public discussion, but try to highlight what we have done in reference to this area, like some of the work that we did do in reference to racial inclusion and equity, kind of like what I didn't take a part in what I actually put out, but that survey that she actually put out and that process in there. So we were thinking it'd be a good idea to kind of highlight what we've done, but still encourage us to still work on it, but wanted to get everybody's feedback on it.
I think that would be helpful. A lot of times we focus so much on the negative or what needs to be done that we overlook the work that has already been done. I also feel like it will provide hope to see that we're working on it, that we're not there, but we're headed in that direction.
You could add in that point, for example,
Okay,
and then mention
and then.
those, yeah, the positives that you see, and let's see how that plays out.
Okay. And then the last one was, any other comment? Nope.
Makes total sense.
And then the last one was number 4. This was more of a, around the data and with RJ, it's. So again, in this section, we still want to keep it here because it's something that's pointed towards RJ and the work that they're doing, but also highlight what they've done so far, because when this first was written, so much has been done in reference to data improvement through RJ. So highlighting what we've done or what they've done to be able to enhance or improve the data collection, but definitely keep this here, but also simply just pointing out what has been done. And I wanted to get feedback from RJ as well for that.
Yeah, we've expanded a lot in terms of our own internal infrastructure to be able to assist us in a couple of ways. One, to improve our data collecting methods, but then also help us to kind of automate reporting and actually purchasing new sort of platforms internally to help us do all of that. So we can certainly, and we've been using that with AB 109 funds. And we've also expanded our staff. Though it doesn't look like it right now, on the books. On the books, we have expanded our staff tremendously. At least on the data side, we do have our research and evaluation manager, and we will be in the process of having 3 planner evaluators, essentially our data analysts in-house. We have been hiring for our program coordinator positions, and eventually we'll have a program manager. Those will be individuals who will utilize the information that we're getting, particularly from our community programs or any of the projects that we are responsible for overseeing, to use information that's collected through those mechanisms to then report back out and share through transparency how well these efforts are going and how well they're doing. So we are getting there. I like to say we're almost there, we're getting there. But we have, at least from where this started to where we are now, we've definitely expanded quite a bit, and we hope to actually produce more and have more written product that goes out for the community to access, more research reports and things of that nature, data dashboards, things that would be easy for the community to access so that they're informed a little bit more quickly, if you will, of what they want to know in terms of the programs that are being provided.
So I'll definitely,
Oh,
no, go ahead.
That's all right. I just wanted your approval. So when I first started on board, and maybe this isn't pertinent to this, but I know the probation department, in terms of collecting data from other organizations, law enforcement and other, felt a little uncomfortable because of the role in that. Has some of that stuff been streamlined? Is that what this is speaking to?
No, this is speaking more in line to the AB 109 community programs.
Okay.
And other ORJ led projects. So like Casey was here to talk about restorative justice. A lot of that information that she's going to be gathering, obviously we'll have access, well, it's for us and to share out with the community.
Okay.
What you're speaking on is in reference to the racial justice oversight bodies, various recommendations that really rely on data and information from a multitude of departments.
Right.
And so historically, a lot of your justice agencies are not necessarily up to speed in terms of the data collection and analysis that's necessary to really support some of the things that our job is calling for. Doesn't mean it can't be done, it's just the reality of where things stand.
Right.
So even though we're beefing up our own research capacity in ORJ and then within probation, it is somewhat, I don't know what's the right word for it.
The challenge.
There we go. To then also be responsible for that sort of analysis of other departments' information.
Right.
So
that's
where
still
so it's still an ongoing discussion point. There's, other than the fact that members of the board supervisors have acknowledged that the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice would be the most appropriate place in the county to be able to do some of that work. Now, how it'll be done and all that is yet to be determined, but at least they have publicly, recommended that that should be the case.
Good.
I got it. Oh, all right, go ahead.
I'm done.
Okay, a question. I'm not sure, and that's why I'm throwing this out. Should we be making a reference in this recommendation number 4? Because we said we want to now say, for example.
Right.
What about that AB 109 survey? Should we mention that? And the one that I think we should really programs and services is the in custody pre-release, post-release survey. I've had 3 of the interviews so far, and when that is mentioned, everybody's ears perk up like, duh, why haven't we been doing that before? So I'm saying, from programs and services, Rena and Latanya, that's a home run. I mean, hey, you just broke, whoever had, 714 or whatever, it's beyond that. The responses we've received. So maybe you could mention that in your 4 examples if you want to provide some pluses there. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I could add to that,
Shoot.
that, just to, further emphasize like the work that it takes on, ORJ's part. We speak with another agency to even allow that to happen, roll out the survey, making sure we're then also reporting back to you guys. We're currently doing some analysis on that so we can present those results back to the public. So if we didn't have a data team, we would not be able to be responsive to those kind of ideas that you all are calling for. That, as you stated, is a big-eyed moment for elected officials or CCP members who are like, yeah, we need that kind of information. So.
And for one other thing, when you talk about data, we're in a world where data prevails. Is there a way that we could make sure that, we've got to make sure your office gets the resources, Patrice, to analyze that data? Or do you have the right programs? Remember, we said next time that survey should be digital.
Right.
Well, if we do that, do you have the resources to do that? I don't know.
Well, and that would be in partnership with Sheriff's Office, so they have the resources too, to be able.
So we need to get, I think we need to get on top of that because that's key. Because if we get that, in a digital format, and then you hit the button, we can get things categorized, we can reformat, we can do anything we want to do. So, how do we highlight?
I was gonna say, so saying that, how do you want to highlight that?
I don't know.
I think it was just examples, all to say that, I don't know how you want to generalize it here. I wouldn't get so stuck on that one specific thing, but essentially that when we, in public spaces, when we talk about the need for data and to do this data collection, analysis, things of that nature.
There you go.
That it is,
Yeah.
well, it's kind of highlighting the headline here. It's a strategy. It's creating a data strategy. So that way you understand what resources are needed and how you want to best utilize those data related resources to a certain end. And what we're finding is that when you tend to go into contract with an evaluator or some kind of research or consultant, they're hired to come in to do a one-time job. Right, come in to do their research and their evaluation and then they're gone. What we're trying to do internally is build up an infrastructure so that way, as questions continue to come up, as
Database to
you
work.
have something to work, with, not
Yeah.
just the data, but all the multiple pieces that are necessary to make us more efficient in telling the story that folks need to hear. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm coming out clear at all, but I see it more within that framework of a strategy to keep that work going in perpetuity. And the benefit of that is that now we're developing our own local research, our own local information.
Okay.
That would be that.
That's great, because I'm visual, so as you say it, I think if people could see like the reason why we're gathering the data and then like what is being used for, they understand the important picture and the value of it. So it's not like we're just gathering information, but we're gathering information to validate that we need additional resources and where they're needed. So I'm not even sure like if we did like something where it says like, this is the process or the timeline, right? So maybe we hear a concern and then data is done, and then we take the data, and then from the data, we look at the resources we have that people would understand the value of it, even on your end, and making sure that your department has the correct resources and information that you need so that we're getting data in real time, but we're actually able to analyze it and then move forward with it.
So for me, what I want to try to do is take everything you guys said and beef up this recommendation.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm here today. Because I can say, and I understand everything everyone's saying, but taking something like that and making it where we have so many great ideas and so much great work to be done in CAP. So how can we simplify that to where I don't want to take away what's already here, but I want to point out those key things like you just said and expand on that. So,
I recommend, why don't you jot down what few notes you have
okay,
and send it to Patrice? I'll be glad to take a shot at it, and then let's mold it a little better and
okay,
cuss it, discuss it, or whatever you gotta do to,
Okay.
and we'll meet your
Meet in the
objective.
middle.
That's right, meet in the middle.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay.
There's a song about that.
There is a song. I'm trying to think of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Would you mind giving us the
I
rendition?
will.
Okay. Okay, let's roll now. What else do you have there?
That's the last one.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Now, we're gonna move to agenda item number 6. Really, it's agenda item number 7, because we're out of sync. Tom, we started late, and believe it or not, Casey gave you an extra 10 minutes.
No, I don't know that I'm, you know.
So, no, seriously, would you be kind enough to share with us what you're involved in, and specifically in the Hispanic community? And just kind of share. And I realize that Pablo was supposed to give the presentation, but that's fine. So is you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And yes, this is Pablo's presentation, and I've never been with him when he has done it. So it's very difficult for me. We can go by the slides and I can interject, but just to start off, I just want to let you know a little bit about our organization, Support for Recovery, and a little bit about myself and how we got here. Very quickly, in 1991, I checked myself into a 28-day residential treatment program. I was on heroin and crack cocaine, and I wanted to continue to smoke pot and drink, because that's what I thought the best my life could offer me. Well, my life had offered me a lot more. And it was from this, and that was in 1991. In 1992, I was appointed to the Drug Advisory Board. We used to have a Drug Advisory Board, an Alcohol Advisory Board. 1 month later, they merged into the Substance Abuse Advisory Board. And in 1992, I was appointed to that, a board much like this, and spent off and on 21 years out of the last 31 years on that board. It's been an honor. It's an honor to be here today and see and acknowledge the work that you all are doing as volunteers, and see the faith-based community represented here. Make me cheer up just because how important I think that is. And I'm real happy to see that influence. Support for Recovery was co-founded by myself and Amy Alaniz and Judy Baston. And back then, backstep just for a minute, I had the honor of working with Jill Ray's father, and now Jill Ray. This is my 31st year of doing this volunteer work, and I can't say enough about her father and herself. They've had to put up with a lot. I'm not the easiest person because I am like a dog. I'm like a dog with a bone, and all I care about is alcohol and other drugs, and how the people seeking help run into so much discrimination out in the community. And that is all that I've ever been focused on. I just retired after 46 years of being a real estate investor and lender. But I ran my business, did this stuff, and it's very important to me. When God decides I'm done, I'll be done. But until then, I'm going to stick with this work as much as possible. So when I first started doing this work, there was nothing for people that left treatment. What it looked like, and it was people went to treatment, they then went to the homeless shelter, they stopped across the street to have a cigarette, they relapsed there, and then they went to the next program. And this is what happened. There was no recovery support services in place. The majority of who we treat at the county level come in homeless, they leave homeless. So there was nothing. If we could do anything for anybody and be helpful in this area. A lot has changed, and a lot hasn't changed. And our focus a lot of the times was on women and women with children. And I want to say at this point, Hispanic women and women with children are the least served population. The second least served population is male Hispanics. And then the third is women and women with children who speak English. So that is our focus. We have been guided into this place of the Hispanic outreach for a number of reasons. One of them is that the director of Pueblos del Sol, which is the only Spanish-speaking treatment program in Contra Costa County. Maybe we can go on with the slides, and I can kind of interject a little bit about, do my best. So lack of services right now, it comes up on another slide. SAMHSA estimates that out of the 296,000 Hispanics in Contra Costa County, 40,000, and I think that might be on the next slide. About 40,000 individuals in the Hispanic community are struggling with substance abuse, alcohol, and or other drugs, and of course, mental health. We currently have 12 residential treatment beds for Hispanics, males. There is nothing for female Hispanics in Contra Costa County when it comes to residential treatment. And there's not much outside of that that's culturally competent that's going on. So when I see things like I was just listening, expanded alternative version. And when I hear that when the Hispanic community goes to jail, they're not given the opportunity to hear about those things. And because of the lack of being able to communicate and understand English, mothers go into court with their children. And I work in Costa Rica now, and I took Spanish. I was stoned in high school the whole time. I should have paid attention but now when I get nervous and somebody's talking to me, sometimes I go, oh, see. And then I don't even know what I'm saying yes to, and I get myself in trouble. That we hear that parents go into court with their kids and they just go, oh, see, they don't realize that their child is being put into the system. And the Hispanic community is not hearing when they go to jail that treatment is an alternative. Racial justice, we talked about that, and that's what I'm just talking about now. And I saw about your survey, one of the huge things that we found out dealing with the Hispanic community is 50% of the individuals that we deal with from the Hispanic community can't read Spanish. So all the time that you hand somebody something that's translated in Spanish, they're lost, right out of the gate. So I would like you to think about how you communicate with that population. It has to be different. We are working with Steve Simpkin with the Sheriff's Department. We're working with the County Office of Education, Lynn Mackey. We're working with Public Defender's Office, Ellen O'Donnell. And then recently I met with Contra Costa Television and was talking to them about this, and now they're thinking about different ways that they can communicate with this Hispanic community. So some of the issues that you're going to see in here, if we could just go right to the tool belt, that it's about 5 or 6 down from here, and I'll hit everything else, but I just kind of wanted to show you what Pablo came up with a little bit further. Okay, there you go. The English speaking toolkit and the Spanish speaking toolkit. This is pretty much lays out what the Hispanic community is dealing with. And then if you move to the next slide, please, it looks like ready to face the world. And then the next slide, I believe, here's the Hispanic community. When they're ready to face the world. Some of the huge issues that we're seeing is there's a lot of pride within the Hispanic community, which adds to a lot of shame. Since we don't have a lot of experience serving women, we serve men, but most of the time it's a mother or sister or daughter or wife that seeks the treatment for their family member. And then those women can't talk to other family members within their community because there's so much shame around addiction. It's almost like when you see people partying, that's okay. But when you start talking about people that have a problem all of a sudden, so there's those issues. There's issues when we send people to treatment. And with the drug Medi-Cal system, it's like, you know, get them through as quick as possible. With the Hispanic community, sometimes we can be working with that community up to 60 days in residential treatment. And it's at that point that someone will come forward and say, you know what, I don't read Spanish. All the things that you handed me in the last 2 months, I would shake my head, like I was saying before, Steve. I would shake my head, pretend like I understood, but I understood nothing that happened up to that point. And one of the huge things that we've dealt with, and thank you because of John Muir Health, we are able to house every single man that leaves Pueblos del Sol that's homeless in a sober living environment, which is huge. The Hispanic community is not lazy. You know, generally they have a job the day they leave treatment. They just need that first 30 days help. And what we see is the culture and the community, when they're doing positive things, is much more supportive than the English speaking population. And the success rate that we're seeing is very high. So we're lucky that we're able to house. I want to Pablo Martinez as an example. We housed him when he went through Pueblos del Sol. When he decided he wanted to become a counselor, we gave him a support for education grant. And last week, Pablo became a state certified SUD counselor. So, you know, it's amazing to see that process happen. At the same time, we need more. One of the huge problems is Hispanic counselors. And when we don't value the work that these counselors are doing, you know, starting off at a job that you could go to In-N-Out Burger and make the same amount of money, people live in poverty. And I believe it's another form of discrimination that the majority of our workforce, when it comes to treatment, are people that are in recovery, and they're not valued for the work that they do, and they live their life in poverty. But they do it because they want to help people and save people's lives, like many of us do. A lot of the things that we do, it's not for the money, because the money ain't there. It's you know, it's because we do what we do from our heart. A couple other things that we find out, you know, when people come to us, what the Hispanic community sees as treatment is the annex or annexo, and they literally pull people off the street in Mexico and put them in places that sometimes family members never see them again. So this is what a lot of the Hispanic community thinks treatment looks like. So it's not what it looks like, but since you all are focused on reentry and pre and post, I want to talk a couple of things about that. And we were doing a celebration at Pueblos del Sol, and one of the men had the courage to come up and tell myself and Fatima, who's the over at Alcohol and Other Drugs, the chief, that he had wished that when he was in the jail, that he had got somebody to talk to him about treatment. At that time, we were the only county in the state of California that didn't have treatment in the jails. And Martine, who is a graduate of Pueblos del Sol, told us that story, and I immediately got a hold of Judge Claire Mayer and Jill Ray over here. And we sat down and we had a lunch, and a group was put together to talk about establishing treatment in jail, which the Crossroads program is now in the jail system. But when I asked, do we have bilingual counselors there, almost, what is it, 2 years later? That it was really a Hispanic person that told a story that made this happen. So, yeah, all that, yes. But we have no bilingual counselors in the jails. So one of the things that we're hoping to fund is to bring Pablo into the jails. Because he wants to let people know that those opportunities are available, but with only 12 beds and access. Well, I want to touch on how the Hispanic community accesses treatment. So if they call the access line and wait for a Hispanic, a bilingual counselor to sometimes the wait can be up to an hour and a half. And you know, the process, initially people are screened, and from the screening, they decide where they're going to go for an assessment. And you can't tell me when there's no culturally competent outpatient treatment out there, and these people need a residential bed, but they're full, that these people are being sent to programs that aren't appropriate for that population. And we know firsthand of suicides and deaths that have happened around this process, and it needs to change. So that is why our organization at this point is so focused on the Hispanic population. And we are going to be hiring a couple of females from the Hispanic community to be intervening in the female population, which at this point, our organization knows nothing about, but we're going to be putting together focus groups to do that. When we do this, it's all in Spanish. I just sit there and kind of listen and pick up on some of the emotion, but then it's all translated for us afterwards. And lastly, I want to say that when Pablo came to me and said, this was all in 1 week, this is God. And here I go. He came to me and he said, you know, half the people in my group can't read Spanish. You know, we need to do something about this. And so I said, okay, I put that in my head. And then I went to get my car washed. And I started talking to the man that oversees all the Autopia car washes. And I said, you know, we really want to outreach the Hispanic community, not really thinking about what Pablo said. I said, can we put up some flyers in your employees' room? And he said, flyers? You know, the people that work for me can't read Spanish. Make a video. You know, that's the way that it needs to happen. So Pablo's saying this all in 1 week. Burgess at Autopia is saying this all in 1 week. And 2 of our members are starting a video production company at the same time. And this is what I'm saying. For me, you know, God is like putting everything together in a way that I couldn't do, or we couldn't do as an organization. So we have now produced a 50-minute documentary that is all in Spanish with English subtitles, and along with a resource video that's 7.5 minutes long. And thank you to Supervisor John Joya's office and Ken Carlson's office that we were able to show that resource video for National Recovery Month proclamation last Tuesday. So we're getting that information out there now to the community, and we know that we're going to be creating a larger demand and having to disappoint people because the services are not in place. But that's the only way to bring about change is, you know, create a demand and then have things happen. So far, we've met with 4 out of the 5 supervisors, of course, started with Jill and Candace. And that's how I got connected to Patrice and, you know, with Public Defender's Office and so many different avenues that we're able to talk to now and move this forward. Already, I noticed in Fatima's staff report that they're seeing more people being referred in. And one of the grassroots things that we did, and then I'll shut up, is we wanted to get our foot in the jails. So Any of you that know about Narcotics Anonymous, there's no real association with any outside agencies, but I was able to meet with Steve Simpkin, who I admire. He's so solution oriented, and reached out to the hospitals and institutions of Narcotics Anonymous, and with Pablo and his volunteers have started the first Spanish speaking Narcotics Anonymous meeting in the jail.
Wow.
And for the first 5 or 6 meetings, nobody showed up, but people are starting to show up. And the word is starting to be spread in the jail from a community-based way that these opportunities are out there. So we're just excited to see this happening. We are one of 6 individuals that are being considered for Measure X Innovation Grant to fund a lot of the things that I've just talked about. Part of that is training bilingual counselors, getting into the jails, taking people over to the consulate, because once you get drug Medi-Cal, you go into a treatment program and it's paid for, but then if you don't have ID when you go over to get dental services and all this kind of stuff, you're turned away because you don't have ID. So those are the kind of things we literally, and if Pablo was here, I would hold his hand right now. We are literally going to hold the hands of the Hispanic community, like pretty much, and Nicole's had experience in this. Every person almost needs that. Coming to this county to seek services, they need their hands held, because to navigate the system is very difficult to do.
And
So
I think it's a trust thing too. I've learned that when you understand the individual's culture, the Hispanics have a hard time opening up to other cultures and would rather connect to someone that is within their culture. It's a trust issue. So I think that you'll get more people coming to your workshops and things like that once it's spread, because that's one of the issues that's there. They won't connect because of the fear of I don't have my ID, or I'm not supposed to be in it. You know, those different things that we don't know anything about. But I think it's great that you're going inside, because it's needed at that level and much more for the Hispanic population. So there is a lack of support when it comes to those individuals. So that's great.
and I mean, Pablo understands all this stuff, he's came from Mexico, he's had a life of addiction, and now he's in recovery and bringing about change. And I said I was going to be done, but it was one other thing I wanted to say. This restorative justice, I was blessed to be able to go into San Quentin prison last week to see 19 men graduate through restorative justice at the small circle mediation, and to hear that they are doing these small groups out in the open population. San Quentin is very segregated, but to openly have small groups with all different ethnic backgrounds happening in the main yard at San Quentin is an amazing thing. And I have seen restorative justice between the victims and the perpetrators happen, and to see the healing that's going on. So when I see what you all are doing, I'm just so impressed on what this board's doing. And again, I want to thank you all for giving us the time today and for the work that you're doing. If you have any questions, I try and answer them.
Are there any questions for Tom?
I don't have a question. I
please.
have a comment, and I'm trying not to be emotional. But this was very enlightening, and what's needed. Even when we did the surveys for the vendors, we focused on like the service they were providing, making sure that they were handicap accessible and they had what they needed for COVID. And at no time do I recall did we ever take in consideration the population and what was needed. And so as someone who goes into West County and have actually talked to the inmates, that population may not have been in there or felt comfortable. And so I feel like, but one thing that was said by the people that are in there is that the reason why they're re-entering is because they're being released back to the same population. And so they're being triggered. And so it's this pattern. And so if they are being released and they don't have the resources and they don't feel comfortable, then we're basically setting them up for failure. And so I think a lot of emphasis needs to be put on here that when we look at, re-entry, that we actually provide them what they need to make sure that they don't re-enter, that they have what they need, and that it's communicated in a way that they understand and that they feel comfortable in it. But thank you for sharing it, because I didn't know that the need was even there on that level. And that we hadn't asked the right question to the people that needed the service, and that there's a large population need that's not being met. And so as I begin to interact with people, I'm going to begin to ask, do you have someone that is Hispanic? And have you guys looked into having a translator that's either there in person or is available, via video, so that we can, that we can service everybody. So thank you for providing us that information, because we can't help if we don't know what the need is. And I feel bad that they've been ignored for this long because we didn't know and there wasn't a connection. So sincerely, thank you, honestly.
Very well. And with a third of the population, according to Steve, in the jails being Hispanic, we're missing. Missing a lot there, so.
And I think.
Oh, please go ahead.
This issue, I think part of the myth that, I didn't think about it, but, not for the population, but how many of this actually read? So they were putting out flyers, for information, but they couldn't even read the flyers. So I know that there's some discussion with Steve Simpkins about putting video up on monitors when they get all that stuff installed so that the videos are playing to get more. But it's something to think about with your survey, because it's not just the Hispanic population, but I know that there's other populations. So how do you reach that population through your survey, right?
Any other questions?
Not another question, comment. Is there any way we can, I want to know the journey of where you what you're doing and how I can continue to support, just so that I know, and then I can provide it to other people. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, if we get funded through Measure X, Pablo will be your man.
okay.
And there would, like I said, I'm already looking at a 24-year-old Hispanic young lady that's really interested in working with the female population seeking or in recovery. So we're going to have that for you. Our supportforrecovery.org. If you go to videos, the 7.5-minute resource video is on there, and then I'm probably going to get it wrong, but the whole documentary probably in the next 90 days will be on Vimeo or something, where that's young people stuff.
And that's also asking about the service on the alcohol and the drugs advisory body, so you can circulate this, bring back updates. Me.
You see me look, I was like, we do. I can only share a little. I can't really go too in depth because of my actual job, but I actually also work inside the jails. I mean, it's definitely a question to get research on data. I do agree with what Jill said in reference to what they're doing, but it is a population that's actually untouched. So collecting that data, that'll be a sheriff's question, right? In reference to getting numbers on the population, the different nationalities and things like that, right?
Oh, that's part of his quarterly report. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he has a breakdown of who's incarcerated.
So when it comes to the survey, looking at different things like that, but I can agree with him that is one of the areas that that programs run into in there is the lack of support for those that do not speak English and trying to help them. I know there is a lot of work being done inside right now to be able to translate information for people, but that is one of the biggest hurdles. And they end up coming back. But one of the things that stood out to me was, especially for Hispanics, was we just go deeper into their culture. Like I learned a lot. I mean, you think you understand, but you don't. I mean, I've met gentlemen to where if you go to jail, you're put with backlash and your family disowns you. So not only are they being released, they have no family to go to. So I've learned it's going digging deeper and really understanding the culture and what they're experiencing in order to really try to help them. So that was like, what do you do when someone has nobody to go to at all, because their family is going to pretty much disown them, and then they end up coming back, and they can't get released because they can't read anything, so they're just sitting there. So it's great work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Man,
Oh, by all means.
wonderful presentation. I cry because I'm aware, though I'm not on the board, but aware of those things that you're mentioning about all the access points and whatnot. And I had a quick question. Start with the juvenile and then just continue on. A question about language, because that really stood out to me. Right, in the Hispanic community, there's English and Spanish, but I know that there's folks who speak from Guatemala and speaking this month. So what are in the surveys, are there questions about other Southern American languages that maybe need for bilingual information or trilingual, like expanding that? Because they don't speak English, or they don't speak English or Spanish, but like mom, like I said, Guatemala. I just am curious if questions on language included in station beside those two. So those can be polarities as well.
I'm aware of what you're saying. Now we're at the Hispanic part, but I would imagine because everything seems to happen for a reason that this will morph into that. It has to be addressed. Because Pablo's just part-time with us now. We're doing 20 hours a week. But we're hoping, like I said, to get him full-time and all this kind of stuff. We'll start that to happen. I'm hopeful.
And understanding that our alcohol and other drug services is in the jail as well as Crossroads. So that may be a question to pose to Fatima to find out what she's doing. Sounds really, responsible.
Right.
As a nonprofit partner.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tom, thank you. It's impressive. To say,
Yeah.
hey, you know what, maybe you're better without Tom.
No, I'm not. Believe me.
No,
We're
no,
a good team.
hey, hey, based on what you did, we should hear from Pablo too. Fantastic. We are just about done here and everybody went out of their way to get here. So may I suggest that the reports, we can put these reports off from the various standing committees, Measure X, et cetera, Board of Supervisors, and just maybe circle back here and see, is there anything else that we need to address? And Patrice, let's do those reports. I think at another time. Okay, because there's just too many of them.
Well, except that.
Oh, okay.
Except that, I would just say you all haven't had a report from the Board of Supervisors since I went back and looked since July 18th. And there's just a couple of items.
Then go ahead,
Share
please. Okay.
rather than keep
Yeah,
doing this. So
that's fine.
on July 18th, Supervisor Anderson had asked the sheriff to work with county council to draft a safe firearm ordinance for Contra Costa County because the state ordinance says that you have to firearms if you believe a child may be in your house. And so there's that little caveat, so they can say I have no children, but you know, they may have a worker come in with a child or whatever. So this ordinance would be for unincorporated Contra Costa County and would mandate that people have the firearms locked up in some sort of, it could be a quick release box or whatever, but just to keep in mind because that is the number one cause of death in children right now. Those firearms and also suicide. So that was passed at the last board meeting as a first reading, and it'll go to the second reading. The sheriff had their oversight report and the truth act form on the July 18th meeting as well. So if you wanted to see information on like population in the jail, that's all on that agenda. August 1st, Congressman DeSaulnier presented 1.18 million to probation for strategies for supporting youth to train the law enforcement agency in Contra Costa County on adolescent development and effective youth interaction. It's the program that's called Teen Branding, and what this does is it's a train the trainer program, right? And because we couldn't get it at the post level so that the officers could be reimbursed, so this is the funding that will allow that to happen until it can maybe be code certified at some point in time. And so that concludes my Board of Supervisors report. And then if you want to do PPC real quick, or do you want to do it? Well, I can tell you, so on August seventh, the Racial Justice Oversight Body,
Oh, that,
item was moved to the Equity Committee as a result, because they ran out of time, so Patrice asked it to be housed in the Equity Committee, which is really makes more sense. The September 4th meeting was canceled, and then September 13th, the Equity Committee meeting selected 2 co-directors for the Office of Reentry and Racial Equity, and Social Justice. And the Board of Supervisors are set to confirm those appointments on October 2nd. So it looks like we are going to lift up an Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. That concludes my report.
can I do a really quick overview of the stuff, because there are a couple of items that.
Then go ahead, okay.
Talk about. So following that, CCP will be meeting this Friday. The agenda was just posted, so I will be sending that out to all of you in just a few. And part of that agenda packet will include a quarterly financial reporting of the previous fiscal year, so fiscal year 22-23. There will be a update in that reporting about the 15 million one-time allocation. So I do know policy and budget have been having some conversations about next steps in terms of planning. So I'm sure Nicole wants to talk with you guys about that now in preparation for what will be shared. So we'll get to it in just a second. Also, because we are kind of time crunched, we do have a couple of applicants that unfortunately can't have, in order to make it in time for them to be approved by CCP in November. They will come to be interviewed at your October general body meeting. So just heads up on that. It won't go to OCPC as it would typically do. It will come to the full body. And excuse me, in the back, your 2 applicants that you all already approved, Rena Hurley and Mark Danley, will be on the agenda for this Friday CCP as well. Okay. So just cover OCBC, just cover CCP. Sorry, I'm scrambling between these. And then programs and services have been hearing presentations from your community programs, your 8109 community programs. Earlier this week, they heard from the Reentry Network, and then also Men and Women of Purpose. Next month, they'll be hearing from the Reentry Success Center, Bay Area Legal Aid, and Center Force. In these conversations, the providers are bringing up some of their budgetary constraints. And program and policy and budget have asked that information be shared with them as they begin the process of putting together the budget requests. They want a budget request for next fiscal year. Okay. So just heads up on that. And then policy and budget really we'll be starting again the budget conversations in reference to requests that CAB will want to make for the next fiscal year, and as well as have a sort of plan in place for how to plan for the allocation of that 15 million across those 4 priority areas. So do you want to take on that right now, Nicole?
Yeah, you pretty much covered all of it. No, so all jokes aside, so during the meeting, we will give an example or our recommendation on how to we plan on planning to utilize these access funds. So the recommendation is for us to take on that project within policy and budget. So we would handle the work groups within our subcommittee meeting, and we would expand that out for the remainder of the year, possibly going into 2024 for those 4 major recommendations. So we would spearhead the work groups. Our goal hopefully is to be able to break it down to where we either have an additional meeting each month to focus on some key elements based on that recommendation. So housing is the biggest one, of course, we go first. And then probably behavioral health, employment, and post pre-release. And then at that point, we'll be able to kind of figure out, based on that data, the funding allocation and initial goal of who would be responsible for that. So in order to get to that resolution, we need data, right? Or we need to be able to get information from county programs, look at models that we currently have, models that we don't have, just figure out what's working, what's not working, and what can we add to, to implement. So that's our goal, that's our recommendation. It'd be nice if we can keep that within our house and be able to gather the information so that we can actually determine how we want to use those access funds. So that's the goal of our recommendation at the meeting.
So does CAB have any feedback on that? Because essentially what she's proposing here is that policy and budget as a subcommittee will serve as the planning work group
Yes.
for the 15 million. Okay.
No feedback? Okay.
Roll. Okay.
And
That's just for this that meeting. Like you want to take for the
Yes.
address or jump, giving the not presentation, but talking about reentry.
oh, yeah, you probably should.
So the last, it was brought to my attention for the Measure meeting that they needed more reentry support and, information went out where we did have some reentry partners did show up, which was awesome. We had Minimum Purpose, Loud showed up. I spoke on behalf of CAB, and given some, recognition for collaboration with Measure X around their funding and, assisting with, us and continuing when we figure out what we're gonna do with the allocation of additional funding. So did get some feedback from them that they're very excited to collaborate. Haven't really brushed off those steps yet, but good feedback on that. The call was actually nice. I was happy to see some reentry individuals speak up. They talked about, number one was housing. And they talked about in reference to employment one-time funding in different areas. So it was nice to be able to hear the feedback that they're opening and they're welcoming to us all collaborating with one another. So hopefully I can have more information with you on that. But if you do get a chance to join those meetings, if we all can do it based on quorum, definitely join those meetings. But I did speak on behalf of us as a full CAB as Measure.
Anything else that Rena, or anything you want to share? We might as well.
Well, I can report back for the programs and services, the income survey, we got 97 responses, right? And there was, 96 were men, 1 was a female, from my recollection, I'm not looking for next, but,
It's all right.
yeah, and, that was really good. I was hoping for more of a, response, but something, like, just
But that's
start.
almost 100 people that
Yeah.
responded. That's
Yeah.
fabulous.
So it's a start. And I guess we'll get the results at the end of October.
That's the goal. That's what we're aiming for. Bring it back by the end of October.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Next steps?
I would just say to council on homelessness, the full PIT point in time count report is out. So if you wanted to read the details on what they discovered in the point in time count.
Okay.
That's full report.
And I'm very excited they captured the adjusted impacted population. It's amazing. You should definitely look at it.
Okay.
Great information, beautiful report.
All right. Did you have anything there for next steps?
I don't, I
Yeah,
didn't hear anything today, but, as I mentioned to some of you offline, we'll gather some agenda
Yes.
items based on what we heard.
Okay.
Send that out to the chairs.
We'll get together and you'll send that out. Nicole and I will work together on that. Nicole, you owe me something to send that I have to comment on.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm making a note right on.
Yeah,
my
okay.
calendar because
All right.
I owe Ariana something too, so I
Yeah.
my report out. So.
Okay. All right then. Well, I think we concluded our business here today. Wanted to thank everybody. And one other quick note. We're in the ambassador season. And it's so pleased that so many of the ambassador meetings have occurred, will occur this month. And by George, I think we should have an exciting ambassador reports that'll be coming to you. And I would recommend for the board next year And what we should do is put all of those ambassador reports together and say, what are the highlights? Because I know the two ladies I've had the pleasure of doing the meetings with, we've got some real meat as to what a supervisor said, maybe you guys need to do A, B, and C. And then the sheriff's office said, you might want to look at D, E, and F, et cetera. There may be some things there that we're not looking at, or that may be on our fringes. It's all about listening. So if we can listen, report, we have something to work from. So just wanted to share that. And one other quick thing, Ozzy is still out. And I'm supposed to do a meeting with a supervisor on Wednesday. If I could get a second to join me, it would be appreciated. If not, I'll do it solo. But it'd be nice. I hate to ask you, Brenda, because you volunteered. No, I don't really, no. But I'm just saying, anybody, it's Wednesday at 11:30. So just let me know. You have my phone number or email if you can assist. If not, I'll do it solo. That's all right. No big deal. Burgess. Burgess, like burger, Burgess. Okay. Burgess. And it'll be kind of interesting because it won't be going according to the script. I've done one with her before. It is nice, really, because you just go with the flow with her. So,
I've done one with her before. You just
Yeah.
have to go with the.
yeah.
How
So
long do you
any,
think it's gonna be, an hour?
probably 45 minutes. So, no, I'm just saying, contact me.
If you put me and nobody else does it, and then I'll just go to my internship afterwards.
Oh, good.
As well.
So we can do another one together.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, because I just felt it was really imposing on Ozzy after having an operation in her situation. And she was saying, oh yeah, I'll do it. No,
She
she's
sure
not.
will say that.
Yeah, I said, no, you're not. You're not doing it. You're gonna get well.
She has emailed saying that she will be joining a CAB meeting. I'm like.
Yeah, no. Okay,
But that's
That's all.
yeah.
proud thing.
Hey,
yeah.
that's Ozzy. Okay, if there aren't any other comments or, oh, yes, sir.
Just want to let everybody know, there's flyers on the table out over there if you want to learn any more about our website, all that good kind of stuff. So thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you.
And if there aren't any other comments, we'll adjourn our meeting. And what time do we have here? 4:09. There we go. And thanks everybody for being patient because we didn't start exactly on time. And thank you.
For coming.
For coming.
Absolutely.